Council. Good evening and welcome to all. Ryan Caith is here with us as usual. He is with KERM, KGOS Radio. This is being broadcast live on the local radio station and also live on the YouTube channel. We also have Jess Oakes here from the Torrington Telegram. This is Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. This is the fifth council meeting of the year, first council meeting in March. I have asked Councilman Deal to lead us in the pledge. That's our first order of business.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda are the mayor's informational items. We are leaving winter. So far, we have been blessed with nice winter weather. This makes it very convenient for city streets crews and for the public and local businesses. As we all know, we will indeed have more snow, but because it is so late in winter and early spring, it won't last long. Keep hoping and indeed praying for more mountain snowpack for a good irrigation season. As winter goes and spring comes in, the city is busy now getting ready for the spring and summer season. City crews and staff are working on the municipal pool, the golf course, and the many parks and ball fields the city owns and maintains. As the seasons progress, please enjoy the many recreation opportunities provided by the city of Torrington. Speaking of spring and summer, the city is now hiring seasonal help. The city hires seasonal workers in the streets and sanitation department, the water and wastewater department, the golf course, lifeguards at the municipal pool, the city cemetery, and others. These seasonal jobs are good jobs and in some cases can lead to eventual full-time employment with the city of Torrington. If you're interested in summer employment, please call 307-532-5666. Again, please call 307-532-5666 for more information. You can also apply at www.torringtonwy.gov. That's www.torringtonwy.gov. The City of Torrington is an equal opportunity employer and maintains a drug and alcohol-free workplace. The City of Torrington now has, and has had for a while, the Text My Gov service for all community members. By this Text My Gov service, you may communicate by text with the city any concerns you may have, and you will also receive important notices from the city by cell phone text. To sign up, just text the word HI, H-I, the word HI, H-I, to 307-338-2802. Just text the word HI, H-I, to 307-338-2802. City staff are pleased with the increased numbers of signups for this Text My Gov service. This greatly benefits the city and the citizens. With warmer weather, there will be increasing pedestrian traffic, bicycles, and motorcycles. Please take extra care to watch for all of them. Please obey all traffic laws, and as always, yield for pedestrians. Please slow down, drive carefully, and please refrain from using your cell phones while driving. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from the February 20th, 2024 council meeting as published.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion from Councilman Kelly to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Victor. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, the consent agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda itself.
I would move to approve the agenda.
Motion from Councilman Patterson to approve the agenda as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Deal. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor of approval of the agenda as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, the agenda is approved. I do not see any white pieces of paper in front of the black box in front of Councilman Victorin, but I do want to explain that to the folks in attendance and the folks that are listening on the radio or YouTube. This section of the agenda we refer to as the public forum. This is for non-agenda items. There is a time limit of 2 minutes, and the speaker must sign up before the meeting. This is a time for council to listen. No action will be taken. We don't have any takers, but I want to make people aware that that's available to them. Now we move on to the action items on the agenda. Item number 1 regards the audited financial statements for fiscal year 23. And we welcome and we have Paul Still with Lee O'Reilly and Company, but I would first call on Mrs. Strecker.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Paul has the report to share with you. If you have any questions, he'd be glad to answer them.
Yeah.
All right, and welcome, Paul.
Yeah, thank you. If you don't mind, I'll proceed like I have in the past. And Lynette expressed to me that you'd like me to keep it to 15, 20 minutes. If I'm going over that, just give me a nod and I'll try to keep it short. I just like to start out by just briefly describing what I do and what we try to accomplish in our audit. And then I'm going to explain what are in the financial statements and go through 3 or 4 highlights, things that I think are important in there. I don't know how much. I think they went out in your board packet last week. I don't know how much chance that you've had to look at it. And Lynette and I went through it again today and got a couple revision and tweaks that we'd like to make to it, and I'll explain those. Okay? And then if there's no other questions, then we'll get it filed with the state. Okay. I go through the short communication, and Lynette just handed those out. I don't think those went in your board packets. This is a required communication that I have with the governing board that the AICPA, American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, feels important that I communicate this information to the governing boards that we audit. I've went through this, I think everybody's heard me at least once, so I've went through this quite a few times. I'm not going to go back through that. But it is some things, goes through my responsibilities, goes through the city's responsibilities, and primarily any difficulties had in performing the audit, any disagreements or unresolved points that we would have during the audit, which we had none. Goes through significant estimates there on the first page. And then just to notify you that I do have communications with all our clientele, the audit clientele, and on a variety of topics that I try to guide and give my opinion or best advice on. And if there's something I feel needs to bring to the governing board attention, that's my responsibility to make that determination and communicate to the board, to the council. When we if there's no questions on that, when we perform our audit, I've got, these are the financial statements of the city. They're not my financial statements. This is what you're paying me for. My job is to essentially take information that's provided to me. None of this information, most of this information comes from the city. I get a little bit maybe from the county treasurer or the Wyoming retirement system, and to assemble those and put these in a form of financial statements that's acceptable or put together in a form that's what we call GAAP, Generally Accepted Accounting Principles, which is acceptable for the state of Wyoming and for the federal government. As part of that, I don't make anything up. I derive information. I send a lot of requests, information requests to Lynette. We go back and forth on issues, things like that, to try to get it treated how she would like to see it done. Also, part of our audit is underneath that, we're verifying information, make sure that that information provided to us is accurate, and also that there's controls in place for the processing of the information to ensure that information is accurate. So I can't go through all the checks that you write, all your disbursements for the year, all your payroll for the year. So like we test that by going through a sample of items, make sure that there's procedures in place that is properly, so that information is controlled and essentially ends up being accurate based upon those controls in place. Any questions on any of that? Okay, all right.
I note that you worked well with the staff at the city this year.
Oh, yeah, I enjoy them very well. I appreciate all their help. It's kind of intense at this state and things. It's real nice. We used to come down here and spend a week down here for 3 people and be very intrusive in this day of technology, exchanging a lot of data electronically. We set up a portal. Her and Rhonda Lynette and Rhonda load up, and Sylvia load up information that we request. We work at a lot of the stuff in our office in Casper these days, and so then it isn't so that we're here for a week at a time or 2 weeks at a time, and that's just the nature of how things have changed on that. So we are doing what we need to do here, but then there's also a lot of assembling and drafting this that we do in our office in Casper. Okay, now the financial statements. I'm going to turn to the table of contents. And I don't know how well your highlights, the dark highlights, there should be a light highlight that I've got in yellow. I think yours are probably a little bit lighter, and then you're going to have a darker highlight on those, on table of contents. So when we do a set of financial statements for a governmental unit, for that, they're going to have, and those are to be treated like just a business. So those are going to look almost like a business's set of financial statements. And those are the entities that essentially are self-supporting. The ambulance, the water, sewer, electric, garbage pretty much are all self-supporting. The ambulance is, some years it's there and some years it's just a little bit short. The other entities that are subsidized by taxes, sales tax, property taxes, grant or allocations from the state, the general golf pool and cemetery airport. They're the governmental fund types. They're not a proprietary fund type. They're a governmental fund type because there is some significant support required by the taxpayers of the entity to keep those afloat. And those are on 6, 7, and 8. And we report on those. Those are not being reported like a business. They're reported on based upon their nature, on spending. How did we spend the money? What was received? What do we have left to spend, and what did we have start to spend? So what did we have to start to spend? What did we receive? How did we spend it? And what's left to spend? And also if there's any restrictions on that money. So I mean, if essentially the water, sewer, electric, and garbage all have restrictions, that money has to stay dedicated to those entities. The other money, like the airport, that money still needs to be dedicated to the airport, and so on. And then, so those are on 6, 7, and 8. And then what we end up then, on the full accrual, those are on 4 and 5. We take all those funds, roll them up on pages 4 and 5, and treat those as if they're a business entity. So there's really not a lot of conversion for the water, sewer, electric, garbage, and ambulance, but those entities that are treated like a governmental activity, we got to put the fixed assets, we got to put the streets, we got to put the police cars in, because those are non-spendable assets. So we got to take the buildings, this building per se, street equipment, and so on, and get those included to treat those governmental entities that aren't fully subsidized, but we reflect those as if they're a business entity. And then we reconcile between all the
all the different presentations there within the sets of financial statements. And then we supplement that with the largest part, over half of it, are the notes to the financial statements, and those are on 14 through 39. Kind of just what I wanted to cover that goes into these. And then if you just don't mind, I'm going to go through some highlights. Any questions on those presentations? I know that's a lot to digest real quick. So if you go ahead and turn ahead to page 4. And this is going to be the statement in net position. Now this is everything rolled up and full accrual now. The last item I referred to there. And I've highlighted a couple things there. Just where the cash or the overall city was at the end of the year compared to the prior year. Prior year, what was presented in the financial statements, a little over $15 million. This year, it was $17 million. So it increased by about $2 million. Now, a lot of that's dedicated water, sewer, again, sanitation. And the other highlighted item down there at the very bottom, I highlighted, it's the net pension liability. And it's, I don't know, maybe 10 lines up from the bottom. And I know this page is the one that it's a little harder to read the highlights. And the net pension liability I've talked about in the past is your percentage share of the deficit in the Wyoming retirement system. Okay, and so the Wyoming retirement system has their valuation. We're basing this on the December 31st, 2022 valuation because that's the valuation that is included in this fiscal year. And the state takes and allocates that out to all the entities that participate in the Wyoming retirement system. So that's your portion. You participate in 3 parts of the Wyoming retirement system. You participate in the public employee plan, the law enforcement plan, and the volunteer firefighter and EMT plan. Okay? And each of those has a different liability, and you have a different share in each of those plans. And that went up significantly. So last year, the total was, 2022 year was $5.1 million. This year was $8.2 million. And of course, the data is not available for the 2023 year, but I assume that that's going to go back down just based upon where the markets were at this time. 2022, the markets were very low. 2023, the markets were at all-time highs on that. So I think that's going to vary again. So that's highly subjective to where the market ends up at the end of the year at the measurement date. Okay, I'm going to flip ahead to page 6. And on page 6 is one of the items we're going to tweak here and make a little bit of change to. Now, this is the fund financial statements. These are the non-proprietary funds, and they are the ones that are not intended to pay their own way. And I put the prior year in there, so for the general fund. So as you can see, the general fund's cash was up about $900,000. I'll speak on that shortly. And the other items were pretty under the assets there. The other items are pretty much in line, not significant changes. And then there under the fund balances, this is what we carry over to the end of the year. Essentially, it's the equity at the end of the year. And then the restricted, and that's $874,000. And that's about exactly what the increase in cash was. Following there? That's the money that was donated to the city that has to be used for the museum. So even though the cash went up, most of that money is dedicated. Okay. On page 7, the next page, and this is the profit and loss for the governmental funds. As you can see, the revenues were up significantly. Again, part of that's at donations. The expenditures were in line. The prior year is the very first column there that's highlighted. And so we come down to the very bottom of the page 7, third line up, and it's highlighted there in the darker color. The general fund was positive $2.1 million. But then I've highlighted down there in the bottom what consists of that. $874,000, $873,500 was the donations, again, that are dedicated. And the other part of that is the ARPA funds that have been ran through the profit and loss. We're going to go ahead and show, we didn't reflect this in the financial statements, but Lynette and I have exchanged some conversations. We're going to show within the general fund that those ARPA funds are committed to particular projects that the council has approved, and reflect that in the financial statements. I'm going to skip ahead to one of the footnotes here. All the footnotes are the same, except we've added a new footnote. Page 39. And we're going to tweak this a little bit, add a little more detail to this. Page 39. And it just details the sewer project that you've been awarded $7 million in loans and $4.25 million in grants. And then you've also got a significant construction commitment related to those for the sewer treatment plant renovations. That's kind of what I wanted to cover in the financial statements. I don't know if you got any questions on any of that. One point is that next year, this year we did not do a federal audit because you were under $750,000 in federal spending. With the sewer project going on and the ARPA funds involved in that, I'm sure that will be included a federal audit. And that then we've got a whole nother set of rules that we need to comply with the federal government over this specifically that project, where I've got to test that specifically, make sure you're complying with the terms of that ARPA grant that you were awarded. Make sure when we do a federal audit, we go to the federal government's website and they give me a list of things they deem are significant and deem need to be tested within that project and with that grant award. That's kind of what I want to cover. I want to thank Lynette and her staff, like you referred to, Mayor. I mean, they're very helpful. And get us all the information we need. They're very cooperative. Really appreciate that.
Thank you, and by their report, you were easy to work with too, but.
Yeah, I know it's a lot to digest, maybe after you've been on the council for 20 years, you'll, I don't know, maybe you pick it up real quick. I don't know. It's not really governmental entities are reporting kind of all their own. They're not like a not-for-profit, not like a regular business, trying to incorporate a lot of different moving pieces to give some transparency, either through budget, through spending, and so on, and I don't know, sometimes that makes it a little more confusing. But I mean, yeah, I mean, essentially, when you're here at the city, you've got 10, how many funds? You got 10 funds, 11 funds? You've got 11 different businesses that are being accounted for and trying to be reflected in these financial statements between the general and all the utilities of the golf and the ambulance and the airport and the cemetery and everything else, so.
One final question. This was good in terms of the requirements were met by the city of Torrington?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
just want to nail that down.
Yeah, no,
I know
yeah,
that's
no,
the answer.
I appreciate everybody, there's really defined procedures in place, that, and everything worked well, and appreciate it. I'm just sorry, I wish I could be here sooner sometimes, and it's just, there's not many of us left doing these type of work, and it just gets, it slows everything down, and my apologies about that.
All right. Any questions, gentlemen? Paul, I appreciate your
Yeah, thank
attendance.
you,
I
Mayor.
appreciate your work. and
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes.
Your
thank you.
travel from Casper to here, and now you got to
Yeah.
go back.
If you have any questions, just if things come up, get with Lynette or Sylvia, either one, and they'll get with me, so.
Okay.
But, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, do we need to accept the audit?
Yes, I was going to ask for a motion to accept the audited financial statements for FY '23.
I'll slow down. Mayor, I would make the motion to accept the audit.
All right. Regarding item 1, I have a motion from Councilman Patterson to accept the audited financial statements for FY '23. Do I have a second?
Second.
I think Councilman Kelly got that. Second from Councilman Kelly. Is there any discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the audited financial statements for FY '23 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, the audited financial statements for FY '23 are accepted. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Lynette. And Sylvia. Next item on the agenda is the Lincoln Community Complex Pony Express Room Rental Agreement Waiver. Kirk Hawes with the Goshen County Republican Party is requesting a waiver of Section 3V of the agreement, which is included in the agenda, relating to firearms for the event scheduled for September 6th, 2024 and September 7th, 2024. Thank you for coming up to the podium, Mr. Hawes, and would you just state your name for the record?
My name's Kirk Hawes, and thank you, Mayor Doby and council for taking time to consider this. Excuse me. I can talk a little bit about it, but I guess I would maybe start with questions, but
I wanted to ask you about this.
yeah.
I appreciate the Goshen County Republican Party making use of the Pony Express Room. I think it's become a fairly regular habit, and that's appreciated.
Sure.
They're a good crowd to host, and we appreciate your patronage, frankly.
You bet.
Now, I understand this is a state meeting. It's not a meeting of the Goshen County Republican Party, but it's a state meeting of the Wyoming State Republican Party.
Correct.
Now, can you just, on the economic side of things, how many folks do you think will travel to Torrington on those 2 days to attend that?
It is maybe somewhat difficult to project, but what I would say is there's 72 voting members on the State Central Committee. And so just maybe make sure, understand this would be, the event is a Wyoming State Republican Central Committee meeting. They meet quarterly. This would be a quarterly meeting there in September. Different towns throughout the state host these. They actually have to bid these and put in this bid for the state party and get awarded that bid. And so this is a piece of that puzzle. Part of the requirements of that is, and if you give me a moment here, I didn't bring a paper copy in, but I do have my cell phone, trusty cell phone. Part of the bylaws of the Wyoming State Republican Party, Article 1, Section 2, 2.2 states, "At no time will any body of the Wyoming Republican Party meet in any venue that denies the individual the rights guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution, Second Amendment, or the Wyoming Constitution." And so that piece of it is why we would be looking to ask for the waiver and acquire that to be able to host that meeting.
And I, not to interrupt you, but I did, thank you, you did send me a copy of the state bylaws, and I do have Article 1, Section 2.2 that says literally what you just read. So
Correct.
that is the case. A state central committee meeting can't be held in a venue that restricts lawful firearm carriage.
That is correct. And so that was a long way to get to the answer. How many people?
Sorry.
And 72 is the voting members. Many times we run 95% of those people will be there. They have spouses, others that travel with them. We have interested parties throughout the state that will come at the same time. I would venture, typically we have probably 100 to maybe big cases, 150 people that will be in attendance. Hopefully, our local party would spend some time there. But people outside of Goshen County coming, 100.
And I appreciate that. And this will bring people from all corners in the middle of the state to Torrington.
That is correct. So the State Central Party, State Republican Central Party, is made up of 3 people elected within each county. And so that gets us to 69. Then we have 3 state elected officials, a chair, national committee man, national committee woman. That's where we'll get 72 voting members.
And I'll ask Ms. Anaya, I understand the application by Mr. Hawes has already been completed and the payments have been made, and we're all squared away on that.
That is correct, Mayor. Yep.
All right. Thank you. I would open it up. Gentlemen, do you have any questions for Chairman Hawes?
I just have a quick question, Kirk. The State Central Committee is coming to Torrington regardless. The fact of the matter would mean that if this isn't approved, you would have to find a different venue. Is that correct?
I wish I could tell you for sure they're coming. No, that has not been awarded yet, but we are hopefully high in the polls, so yes, that would be correct. If this wasn't approved, I would not be able to use this venue, Pony Express Room, as the meeting location. We would have to seek a different venue.
Well, I guess I have a question for Jim, maybe. Isn't this covered under a federal or state regulation
Well-
about firearms in government buildings?
Federal buildings. This is not a federal building, so it goes to the local policymakers. So you're allowed to allow that if you deem it safe and necessary. You can't carry a firearm into many federal buildings. Like any bank with FDIC, you're gonna get in a bind. The post office, you're not supposed to have. Any federal lending institution. It doesn't apply to local governments.
But isn't there a statute that says they can't bring it into, like this council chambers, they can't bring them in either?
I believe that in council chambers, I believe that's different than something like,
The statute reads meeting,
yeah.
governmental meeting.
So that'd be different than this situation on the other side of the building, if you will.
And just to be helpful, I know Chief Johnson provided me a copy of Wyoming Statute 6-8-104, the provision regarding exceptions to concealed carry being allowed. And that Pony Express meeting room is not one of those exceptions. You do have courtroom exceptions and internal law enforcement sections inside, but that Pony Express room is not covered. It is not an exception to lawful carry under Wyoming law.
If I may, I've thought about this a lot and done a lot of research and read the statutes and this Wyoming State Constitution and the Second Amendment. And I don't want to get into that debate, but nothing by us not allowing that does not violate the Wyoming State Constitution, and it does not violate the Second Amendment. My concern is that we have policy in place. To waive that policy is within our ability. We can do that. But you open, the term that gets used a lot is slippery slope. We open that up, and then pretty soon another group comes in and says, hey, I want that waived. And then a wedding party wants that waived. I think it's a bad precedent to waive a policy. We could change the policy altogether, but to waive it, I think, I don't support that. The other thing is, I think there's some potential liability that, God forbid, that there be an accident as a result of firearms in that facility and someone's injured. I believe the city of Torrington would have some liability. But the biggest one for me is that room is next door to a preschool that will be in operation on the first day of this meeting. And that by itself, for me, is the line I won't cross. So I rarely vote no on anything, but my intention is to vote no on this for those reasons. And again, I know we always say this, but I am not anti-gun by any stretch of the imagination. I own firearms, I use firearms, but there's a time and a place, and so that's my position.
Okay. And I did have an extensive conversation with Chief Johnson about this issue. In fact, I think this was my mistake. I had told him I would probably put you on the agenda for this next meeting because he's unavailable tonight. But I've also talked to Assistant Chief Connolly about it, and Matt Johnson told me that he doesn't see any safety concerns, or he doesn't, as Chief of Police, have any safety concerns about the waiver if we grant it. And I would ask Assistant Chief Connolly if he has any safety concerns if we grant this waiver.
No, we don't have any safety concerns about it.
I would maybe take an opportunity to speak. They're the group that carries. They're very competent. And not to say nothing can happen, because you can trip with your hammer and stick it in you and have to go get stitches. So anything can happen with anything. But they are fairly competent, not fairly, I should say, they are competent. And it is a common occurrence to see a weapon carried open. And not everybody, but some of them do, so.
There was just an accidental discharge at the Dairy Queen in Casper yesterday, and somebody was shot.
But yeah, open carry with a preschool right there, same entrance, right there.
Well, it's not that the firearms aren't allowed, because the firearms are allowed by a duly sworn officer. So it's not that they aren't allowed, they just aren't allowed by the general public. The way I read it.
Yeah. And just for the record, I'm not questioning anyone's competence.
Sure, and
Firearm safety practices.
I think that's fair
appreciate
to
that.
say with folks that choose to carry. It is on them to be competent.
Yeah.
It's a tool is like any tool. That's how I look at it.
And I would just say from personal experience, I used to be the vice chairman of the Goshen County Republican Party, and I have been to many state meetings, and occasionally I'll see somebody with a weapon on their hip. I have never experienced any trouble with it. In 2016, when that was a very busy year with President Trump running and Senator Cruz running, I remember the state meeting in Casper at, I don't remember which hotel, but at the huge ballroom, and there were people allowed to carry if they so choose. There were precious few who did, and I remember having Senator Cruz speak to the group. I was clear in the back of the room with all the national and international press that attended that convention that year, and where I was sitting, he was probably a third again farther than that back wall from me. I could have thrown a baseball for distance, and he could have caught it without it bouncing on the ground. And he was in there, and he had a couple of security guys, and we had United States senators in there speaking with people responsibly exercising their Second Amendment right. So that's been my personal experience with the Republican Party. There's not drinking going on, there's not carrying on going on. There's in there to do the party business, and so that's been my personal experience with the state Republican Party.
Correct. And the Friday afternoon, when I don't know what time the preschool closes, those meetings are at 2 and 3 o'clock. They would not include the entire voting. It's a committee meeting, usually maybe 6 or 7 of us at 2 o'clock, and there might be 20 at the 3 o'clock meeting. That would be, I don't know what time it closes on the Friday afternoon, but that would.
I'm not sure either. Lynette, do you know?
I don't, for sure.
I think that it's open on Friday despite the fact that the public school isn't on Fridays now.
Probably because of,
A lot of it's the daycare and the age of the kids and so on, so.
sure,
I'm guessing
probably
there
full.
might be daycare after it, probably four or five-ish, I'm guessing, if I had to make a guess. Deputy Clerk and I says she thinks it's at 5. Okay. Any further questions for Chairman Haas? Any further thing you want to say, Chairman?
No, and I understand, having policies in place, and I do appreciate, Councilman Patterson's comments, and I do understand that very well, and, so the decision that you guys make will be the decision we, of course, adhere to, and, thank you for your time, and that's all I'd have.
All right, thank you, Chairman Haas, appreciate it.
Sure.
All right. Regarding agenda item number 2, Lincoln Community Complex Pony Express Room rental agreement waiver, wherein the Goshen County Republican Party is requesting a waiver of Section 3.5 of the agreement relating to firearms for those events scheduled on September 6th, 24, and September 7th of 24, to allow for them to bid to the State Central Committee to have a State Central Committee meeting. All those in favor of granting that waiver regarding firearms signify.
Don't we need a motion?
I need a
Mr.
motion.
Mayor?
I apologize. Thank you, gentlemen.
If you're waiting for one, Mr.
I'm
Mayor,
waiting for
I would do that. I would move to waive Section 3V of the rental agreement as set forth in item 2 of the agenda.
All right. I have a motion from Councilman Victorin to waive that firearms requirement as set forth in the agenda. Do I have a second? I will second. Any further discussion, gentlemen? All right. All those in favor of granting the waiver signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to granting the waiver signify by saying nay.
Nay.
The waiver is not granted. Thank you for your appearance. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is item number 3, ordinance for third reading. Mr. Eddington, would you please read the title?
An ordinance creating and enacting Chapter 5.28 of the Torrington Municipal Code 2024 revisions relating to permits, utility work within city rights of way.
All right, and I'd call on Jeff Harkins.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. At the second reading of this proposed ordinance, Chief Johnson and Attorney Eddington had some concerns with Section 5.28090. They made some comments. I've incorporated those comments into the ordinance. They have reviewed it and are in agreement that it is now, I guess, something that they can enforce.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Mr. Harkins, could you refresh my memory what those changes were? I hate to put you on the spot, but
Basically, what I added was, if you look at 5.28090, it says any individual, representative, or responsible party
Second page, yeah.
of any business. That was what was basically added to it. Previously, it said any business, firm, partnership, organization. But because we didn't list out the individual, representative, responsible party, there was nobody kind of identified that could be held accountable in the business, partnership, et cetera.
it all comes back to me now. Thank you.
Okay.
And just to add to that, I have checked with Chief Johnson, who is happy with the language as it's set forth in third reading, and I also checked with Assistant Chief Connolly. He's happy with the language as it's set forth in the third reading of this ordinance. So that's, I think, you gentlemen, the chief and the assistant chief, were concerned about the enforcement end of that and worked with Jeff and the city attorney and got that squared away till you're satisfied, right, Pat?
It is, Mayor, and I'm sorry, Chief Johnson and I actually made the change last night at the last council meeting and handed it to Jeff when we walked down the hall. We've got to be able to cite someone rather than some legal entity that we don't know who to cite. We don't want to go after some registered agent like we would in a lawsuit, so we thought that would take care of it.
And to refresh everybody's recollection, I think that section below it, allowing us to collect damages, if there's damages to city property, I think that's the route we generally want to take. That would be the primary route,
Right.
as opposed to a criminal citation. That would be a secondary route, right?
Correct. I don't really see that section 528090 being used all that often, if ever, but it's there just in case.
All right. And because I had a staff this meeting, this is a bit more familiar to me than the council probably. But the other item that was brought to our attention at the staff meeting originally by Ed Hawley was on the first page, the last section. Section 5.28.050, permit execution. I think that last sentence there where Ed suggested we should have a provision in here to make the contractor put it back in the original or better condition than it was before they started. That was Ed Hawley's concern, and that's now in there.
Correct.
Well, Mr. Mayor, given that concerns have been addressed, I would make a motion to approve third reading of the ordinance.
All right, I have a motion from Councilman Deal to approve the ordinance set forth in item 3 on third reading. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Councilman Patterson. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the ordinance on third reading relating to permits, utility work within the city rights of way, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, that ordinance is approved on third reading. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is marketing agreement, request to approve a marketing agreement between the City of Torrington and Utility Service Partners Private Label, Inc., doing business as Service Line Warranties of America. And I know Mr. Troxel is here. May I call you forward to explain this a little bit? And this is Tom Troxel. He is the supervisor of water, wastewater here in Torrington.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Do you have any questions about this program? In your packet, we have a marketing agreement that Jim Eddington worked with my contact. His name was Dennis Lyons, and they went back and forth with, he was kind of the middleman, and our attorney worked with their attorneys and straightened out the marketing agreement. Right now, little history on this. Right, a few years back, the mayor and council members went to a WHAM meeting or a national meeting, national cities or something or another, and they came back and said, why don't we have this going on? Why don't we do this? And I said, well, we can. That'd be great. So we started the program, and a few months down the road, maybe 6 months, a year, I don't remember, but the mayor at the time asked me to end the program because people were constantly calling the city, asking questions because they thought the city was providing the insurance. or the program. That isn't the case, and they're providing the services. We're just saying we sponsor it, we endorse it. I think it's a good program. I think we had above 200 customers the first go-around. There's been several of those that benefited from the program. It's relatively cheap insurance. Let's just say around $10 a month, plus or minus. If you have a water line fail, the service line to your house, it'll be covered. If you have a sanitary sewer line collapse or get tree roots in it or whatever, it'll be covered. So you can cover both of those for about $20 a month. Or you can just choose to do one or the other.
So, Mr. Mayor, I do have some questions, just want to clarify some things, and this may be as much for the city attorney as, I'm not sure. I sure could have used this about 15 years ago because I had a sewer line collapse, and that is not only real disruptive, but it's real expensive too to get that replaced. So having said that, I don't have an issue with this. Is this the same company that sends out the things with the gas company on the gas lines?
Yes,
Okay.
they are now. If it's kind of hard to find in that link I sent you, but if you look in that link I sent you, they are partners with Black Hills Energy.
Okay, because I see those pretty regularly. Part of this agreement requires us to turn over those names of our utility users to submit those to this company for marketing purposes, is what I understand. Would that include telephone numbers? The information that,
I don't believe so.
We've gone that far yet in the process to know.
okay. That would be the only concern I have. I don't have an issue with the mailing stuff. I just hate, we all get them.
Sure,
We get
sure,
and I just
and-
don't want to add to that and have the city's name tied to that soliciting stuff. But if it's a postcard like these,
And just from my observation, we don't have many of anybody's telephone numbers anymore because they went all cellular and never updated their accounts.
no, okay.
But anyway,
So, and then the last question I have about this particular company is this is considered insurance?
yes.
Are they regulated by the State Insurance Commission? I mean,
I would assume all insurance is, but I didn't check them.
well, the fact that they're already selling it in Wyoming for the gas, they probably are, but
Yeah.
what I was wondering about if someone has a concern or complaint,
Sure.
who would that go to? Because that, there's always room for conflict with, potential conflict or misunderstanding, and, I thought they were gonna pay this, and they don't wanna pay it, and, and I hate, again, to see the city get pulled into that, so I could see where Mayor Varney
Very
doesn't like the
good,
phone
very
call.
good question.
So-
Very good question. They're in 8 other cities right now, I think, 8 or 9.
In Wyoming?
Wyoming.
Okay, so I'd assume then have appropriate business licenses or whatever they need, and Secretary of State and all that stuff, so, okay.
I know there's still companies that are still doing this, but this service partner private label doesn't sound,
Well, it's really kind of confusing because it's DBA, doing business as, and then the Service Line Warranties of America was,
that's the one I think it is, because
that's the one we had before, and that's them too. And they're also doing business as or under the Home Serve name as well. Just like those Home Serve commercials you see on TV, that's them.
And I think one of the trouble back then was the price didn't come out to be what they said it was gonna be and things like this, and the city got involved, like you said, when everybody started calling the city bitching because they didn't get their work done. I think that's the way it worked, didn't it? And there was, at that time, there's
Well, no, well, not exactly.
multiple companies doing it.
There was multiple companies. There's several other companies out there that are doing it. Yes. What they're gonna do is we're doing a review right now of their letter that they're gonna send out to the customers. The mayor is gonna be reviewing that. Lynette, Sylvia, and their staff is gonna be reviewing that, and we'll probably even ask Jim to look at it. To hope that, in that review of that letter, is to help curb the phone calls and the questions to City Hall. And make them, they're gonna have our logo on that letter with their logo, but we don't wanna be standing out like we're providing that insurance.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Mayor, that brings me to my question on the entire proposal. One, can this company sell this insurance whether we grant them this marketing agreement or not? Can they sell it to a homeowner?
Well, yeah, because I've already got it.
So this, basically, we're approving them to use our logo, and then we get a little kickback. Is it necessary to use the logo? I think that's where most of the confusion lies within the consumer, that we're administering the program, is they see our logo or our, on the letterhead. I know they want our endorsement of some sort, right? But I guess if you're a homeowner and you've bought into the plan, you go back and reference your documents and you see, oh, there's City of Torrington, I'm going to call City Hall.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, to follow up on that, I'm somewhat uncomfortable with the city endorsing an individual plan when there are other insurance companies that provide the same service.
Well, I was wondering too, wouldn't this fall under a franchise fee type thing?
Don't believe so.
The fee basically would be the kickback they receive on the sale of policies. How many,
But we have a franchise fee with the phone company and cable companies and everything else, so why wouldn't this be a?
when this program was in,
This is endorsed by National Rural Water. It's endorsed by the National League of Cities. It's endorsed by various WAMs around the United States. It's a big program. It's huge. And then with Black Hills, partnering with Black Hills, I think more or less, they're probably just gonna take over Black Hills. I don't know. It's up to you guys, I guess.
does any staff have recollection on how many homeowners participated the last time this was?
We got a number from him, and I believe it was over about 200 plus. Right now, we have 200 and some city customers. And just for your information, I mean, you can do the math, it's really easy, but for $10 or $12 a month, $120 a year, look at the cost of what it costs to put in that sewer line or water line. It's in the thousands of dollars. So you could be paying on this for 10 years, and then you need it, and it's gonna save you a huge amount of money.
I think it's a good, it's a good idea probably for homeowners to have this type of insurance. I'm seeing more homeowners having to replace their water lines or sewer lines here relatively, just driving around. I guess my hesitancy is with that consumer trying to get questions answered, and they confuse the policy with City Hall. And so, I'm certainly for the agreement. I guess my trepidation is with the logo or somehow getting it noticed to the consumer that this is whatever, home serve or whoever it really is.
And that's what we're doing internally.
Okay.
For instance, I'll give you an example today. Sylvia had a question. We're gonna just compile all of our questions, and we're gonna contact them. But Sylvia, one of Sylvia's questions is, they have the City of Torrington's logo first up in the corner, and then theirs over here. Can we reverse that and put their logo over here and put ours down here and maybe even size it down a little bit?
Or some sort of a disclaimer on there too, that this is not administered by the city of Torrington or.
Exactly.
Nobody's gonna read that.
That's a very good
Yeah, a
suggestion
sentence-
right there.
Sentence that says, the city of Torrington approves the plan, but does not administer the plan.
Very good suggestion right there.
And that's my concern too, is that these poor folks working the front up there get yelled at a lot. Upset people, and when people are frustrated, and they don't know, that, they tend to take it out on the folks working at the front. And I just hate to inadvertently add to that.
And as we're getting to be an older community, I know that my mom annually always forgot and got her letter from Black Hills or some other company, and it was always, is my gas line about to go out? Do I have a problem with my water line? Should I spend on this? Yeah, and
Yeah.
And if I may, and I can't remember if there was a councilman there or not, but we had at least an hour-long, if not longer, meeting. I know Lynette was there, I was there, Tom was there, and several others. Sylvia, Mr. Harkins, with this gentleman named Dennis Lyons, to go over all of this. And the primary concern that the people that work for the city that had experience with this prior, because I wasn't here, their concern was potential customers mistaking the company and the city staff potentially being overwhelmed. So that was the primary discussion that happened with staff, because none of us was comfortable even getting near this marketing agreement if we did not have a measure of control over what actually goes out, because we want to make sure that it is clear to anybody with a modicum of literacy and a modicum of intelligence to know that it's this company that's selling this service and not the city of Torrington, because I believe there was a bad experience when this was tried before. So the staff is fully aware of the problem. They're the ones that suffer under it if we don't get this right. And I know today there was a lot of emails from Tom to Sylvia and others who were saying this, that, and the other, and let's put this, that, and the other. And Mr. Lyons has seemed very reasonable to me on working with us on this, because he fully knows what our concerns are, as we had during that hour-long meeting. That's my perception. What I like about this is it is thousands of dollars if you have one of these problems.
Yes, it
And
is.
if you are a young couple with a house and you're not even aware how sewer lines work, this happens to you and you don't have the savings to take care of this. And I guess you hope and pray that you can borrow money from mom and dad, or the contractor will work with you, which I don't blame them if they don't want to. They want to get paid. So it's a safety net for people, truly, and it's a reasonable cost, $120 a month, or whatever. A year, excuse me, sorry. So, thanks for that correction. So there are certain people that really should have this. And, a lot of people don't get how it works, Hey, it's on the city from our line to your property line, and after you cross the property line, it's not us, and Tom has to tell these people, sorry, that's up to you. And I can give you some referrals for a contractor, but it's up to you to find your own contractor and all of that. And I asked Tom at staff meeting this morning, do we have a local contractor that's signed up with this company? And he said, yes, Midwest Plumbing at this time is signed up.
Okay.
And I believe there's one, seems like in Douglas, maybe it's Wheatland, that's signed up. But there is at least one participating local contractor here. So I appreciate there's wisdom on this council. I admit that, and I agree with it, I appreciate it. But this was fully talked about, not only at that meeting with Mr. Lyons. Tom came to all of us with this idea because he's out there in the field and sees the need. And I think this is a wonderful service to provide or to offer to people. They don't have to take it, but, if you're fairly well-heeled and got a lot of money in savings, this isn't the end of the world if it happens to you. If you're not fairly well-heeled and you don't have a lot in savings, this is a crisis. If this happens and you're a first-time homeowner, or you're older and on a fixed income, And, oh, man, where am I going to come up with $6,000, $7,000?
Several times.
See, that was one of the biggest
That has
complaints
happened.
back then, that there wasn't a contractor that would honor it because they didn't pay him what the contractor wanted him to pay.
Well, and
That
that,
charge. And I don't have a problem with this, in fact, because I've had this for years. Never used it, but I've had it. So I don't have a problem with it, but I understand how it works. But the people at the front desk, when they used to get the calls for, they're the ones that,
well, and believe you me, the people at the front desk were part of this discussion.
Good.
They were part of this meeting, and because we're fully aware that they don't want to be inundated with these calls. So we are diligently working with this company to make sure that the presentation does not put us up front, that it is indeed this company.
Are we up against a time limit so that we could not wait to see what the letter says and be more fully informed as a city council?
No, there's no time limit. We could table this and bring it back if that's what you're thinking.
That's what I was suggesting. There might be a higher comfort level if we knew what was going to be said and what was going out.
Mr. Mayor, I have a little bit different take on it. I don't want to get too much into the weeds as far as micromanaging. We have competent people that can put that together and make sure that it is appropriate in consultation with the mayor and stuff. So I'm fine either way that we approve it tonight with that provision that be worked out in a manner that's satisfactory to the.
We're never gonna get it 100%.
No, I understand that.
Get it the best we can.
Satisfactory to the city administration and the mayor or whatever, or we do it and then bring it back, and I'm fine either way, so.
Well, and that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. We had at least an hour-long meeting with this gentleman. He seemed to be a very reasonable guy. He understands our concerns from past experience. If he gets anything about us, it's that. That we don't want the people that get this letter or this mailing to think that it's city. He understands that is our primary consideration. And I think so far he's been very willing to work with us in the design of this mailer, if that's what you want to call it. And the ladies that are actually affected by the calls or potential calls, I'm not hearing complaints from them. You can speak up if you want, but
That's your chance.
I think the mailing material is the
Concern.
main thing we need to work out.
Yeah.
Because that was the problem in the past.
right. But has that not been our focus on this go-around?
It has, and we now have an example we can work with. We got that today, I think.
Right.
So, okay, so again, so that I don't know that we need to get involved in all the details, but because we have competent people and they know
Yeah.
what they're doing, but if they could put together something that would be satisfactory to them, I would have no problem supporting this.
Okay. And
Yeah.
I do agree it's a good service to offer. And it isn't some fly-by-night insurance company. It's National League of Cities and who's the other?
Rural water, national.
Rural Water. Credible associations really recommend this because it's a real problem for
Yes.
people in certain situations.
Not only Torrington, nationwide.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, especially Rollins.
So. All right, any more questions for Mr. Troxel, or?
Another point is they will use local contractors this time, and I believe they already have one contracted. So I think that was an issue last time. I think the contractor was out of Douglas or Wheatland or something. So
We have it, Tom reports that currently we have one local contractor interested in being a signed-up contractor for
And
this.
yes, and the primary contractor is a plumber, which is very important. Most of your local plumbers, they'll hire a local excavator.
Right.
And we got a half a dozen or better here in town that have backhoes.
And, you know, this is just my final thought, it's a freedom thing, too. it goes to their, we're not forcing anybody to buy anything. If they run it through their common sense and think about it, then let the buyer pick or not pick. I mean, I don't want anybody to think we're shoving something down somebody's throat. I think it's a good idea to offer it.
Throughout my career, just real quick, Mayor, I've ran into this all the time. And years ago, I was able to get a couple widows help through rural development. They helped them with their issues that they had. But after that, and then our office closed, I don't have anybody to talk to over there anymore, but and something like this comes out, it's nationally recognized, it's a good program. I think it would be good here in Torrington to at least be out there for an option for these people. Because constantly, whether it's widows, young kids, we had young kids bought a house over on the west side of town, and our service line, city service line, leaked, and they said, "Oh my gosh, what if that was ours?" And I said, "Well, you'd be looking at a $4,000 repair bill," and they're like, "Whew, we don't have that kind of money. We don't have that kind of money set aside." So you got a husband that's working and a mother at home with 2 kids. But at least this way, for a few bucks a month, they can have some insurance.
And just my perspective on it is I give credit to Tom for bringing the idea back up and Tom making the context, okay? And Tom setting up that meeting that we all attended. I know Lynette was there, I was there, Sylvia was there, and others. I can't remember who. Jeff, I think, was probably there. But we all went into this meeting with Mr. Lyons knowing what the past problem was and letting him know what the past problem was about people mistaking who is behind this. Is it the insurance company or is it the city? And that was our major concern when we went into these discussions with Mr. Lyons. But you're out there in the field. You've been out there in the field for decades, and you see this. And you see the heartbreak, and you see the tears, and you see the problems that come along when people aren't prepared for this expense. And this is a way to at least offer them an opportunity to take care of that at $120 a year and have that covered. And it's an opportunity to let local plumbers sign up for this. And we have one so far, and there may be others. And as you say, your experience out there in the field, the plumber's going to get a hold of a local guy to do the excavating work if he needs to.
So, Mr. Mayor, would it be appropriate to move to approve pending an agreement, a marketing agreement can be, that's acceptable to the city administration and the mayor?
I think I'd reword that to the letter, the mailing.
Yeah, the
Marketing material.
marketing materials or whatever.
Why wouldn't you just table it until they get that?
Well,
in there?
we can too.
To me, that would be the simplest. way to do
If
it.
you'd prefer that, I'm patient. So,
'Cause I don't know,
if you'd prefer to see it first,
well, yeah. That would probably be the better way to do it.
We got some pretty good staff working on it. They've been here for years.
Oh, yeah. Did he tell you how many people already still have that stuff from back then?
He did not.
so
Could that letter, Mr. Mayor, could that letter be had by our next council meeting?
that's what I was going to ask.
Well, but here's be a question I have. So is council expecting to approve the letter too?
Well, that would have to be part of that. They'd have to approve that, so that as an employee.
Really, all we asked you to approve is a marketing agreement.
And
Marketing
That's on
agreement
the
is the
agenda.
letter, right?
It's on the agenda.
No.
No,
Marketing agreements,
it's on the agenda.
letter would be something different, and I trust the city folks to I mean, they're protecting themselves, so I think it's
Well, yeah.
perfectly reasonable they'd come up with something worthwhile.
I mean, I understand tabling it, as Councilman Kelly is suggesting potentially, because the marketing agreement, at least in Exhibit A, is pretty vague on what the use of city logo, name on letterhead, advertising, signature line, and marketing. It's very vague on what that all entails. I'm good with it either way. I think you could, if somebody wants to make a motion to approve pending approval by administration on the letterhead or on the marketing materials, I'm good with that. I'm good with waiting to see the letter. I'll
Yeah.
vote. I'll vote.
Well, let me
way.
start this, and I'll see if I get a second. I would accept a motion to accept the marketing agreement as set forth in the agenda on item number 4. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilman Patterson to accept, or allow me to sign the marketing agreement as set forth in item 4. That's the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Councilman Deal. The motion is simply to allow the mayor to sign this marketing agreement that's set forth in item 4. Any further discussion?
It could be terminated at any time, though, right?
No, it's 3-year term and 90 days notice. Page 2, paragraph 3.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have an investment, so they want a 3-year term to get.
And up to 6 times 6 letters per year.
Then it's automatic renewal on the current language of the proposed contract.
One thing in the agreement that I don't really see, other than in Exhibit A, is the license fee. It says that they will pay that percentage to the city. It doesn't say when. Is it at the end of the term, or is it annually?
First payment will be due January 30th of the year following the conclusion of the first year of the term.
What clause?
For consideration. As the first payment shall be due at January 30th of the year following the conclusion of the first year of the term.
Looks like they're annual payments then. Okay,
Sounds like to me.
okay. Mr. Mayor, I call the question.
Right, question has been called. All those in favor of approving the marketing agreement, which means to allowing me to sign it, as set forth in item number 4, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, that marketing agreement is approved, and I will sign it. Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
gentlemen.
Troxel.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right. Number 5 on the agenda is approval of the bills from February 21, 2024 to March 5, 2024. Mrs. Strecker.
Thank you, Mayor. Attached to your agenda were a list of bills, and then handed out tonight was another set of bills for your consideration. I will open it up for any questions you may have. Point of clarification on the second set of bills on page 3, Cowbell Insurance. We did, I would like to enter into contract to get cyber insurance for the city. We did not get that earlier in the year, and I believe we need to get that in place. And I do have enough in the budget to get that done.
It might be important.
Yeah.
Ms. Strucker, is that vendor, the payments to that vendor, was that an annual payment?
So this is for 6 months, and it'll renew, I believe, in July.
Are these figures a yearly figure, or is it just?
So this is for a 6-month premium. So we'll look at renewal for a full year, and hopefully at that time, we will have everything in place so that that premium can go down.
There's some things that IT can do
Yes.
to fix this
To
so that
improve
that
this,
premium is
yes.
not as high in the future. But this covers us for some cyber
We can't leave that
attack.
exposure out. We need to get coverage, so.
So I have one question. I don't want to embarrass anyone. This is on page 3 of the original set, Dugan Funeral Services. Did we back into a monument? Is that knock one off a base or?
Lots of times for funerals, we have to move those.
Okay,
So I think that's one of those fees.
it was just in the way. Oh, okay, thank you.
What page is that on?
Right here, they had to reset them. So I thought some. Good.
Going back to the cowbell insurance, there's 2 notations on there for cyber insurance for sanitation. Is it because of,
So the sanitation has 2 cost funds, one for collection and one for disposal. So it's just breaking it up between the 2 department sections of sanitation.
How were those fees, how did Cowbell assess those fees? Are they based upon computer terminals or?
There's a very long questionnaire that we had to fill out that, I guess, tells them how the
Exposed.
risk exposure is in our IT system. And I think they look at, total budget.
Sure.
is this the type of thing that Jesse was talking about last year? When we had budget session last year, we brought up something about cybersecurity, wasn't it?
I think I could help talking to that, and I don't want to divulge what we were talking about in IT in terms of network security, but this is a component of bolstering the network, especially within the city. There are other components that are going to be coming online, hopefully within the near future, that will increase the city's portion of the IT contract or IT agreement, but it will certainly benefit us.
Definitely.
Frankly, it just scares me to death if we suffered a cyber attack and we weren't covered with by insurance. That scares me to death,
It's
given
a
how
huge liability.
complicated this administration of this city is and how much is at risk from something like that.
When it happened at EWC, it would have been better to have the building burned down than the impact that had on the operation. So it's just hard to imagine.
And I know insurance probably isn't, it'll cover the cost, but the time if it does happen, will be huge. So this is just one step in getting us closer to fighting a cyber attack.
And I appreciate what you just said and what Councilman Victorin said. This isn't a perfect system yet, but we're working towards perfection to
Yes.
avoid the damages that come from a cyber attack. We're working toward that, and this insurance is helpful at this time to that end.
Right.
So I got two boys, one that works at the University of Wyoming, one that works in the cybersecurity outfit out in Washington. And that's all they deal with this stuff. And you wouldn't believe some of the stories of the stuff that goes through that kind of thing.
I hear stories from when this happened at EWC.
Yeah, I mean, right
Here locally, yeah.
I think there's been
Still
other
dealing
local
with it.
attacks as well. So it's not like it's happening elsewhere. It's happening here.
And I believe last fall, wasn't City of Rollins, didn't they suffer a cyber attack?
Yes.
So the bad guys are out there.
Unfortunately.
Well, if there are no more questions about the bill, I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
All right, I have a motion from Councilman Kelly on item number 5 to approve the bills as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Victor. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the bills as presented in item 5 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing no nays, those bills in item 5 are approved. Next item on the agenda is public comment. This is a time for anybody out there in the public that may come forward and make a comment, or councilmen are free to make a comment. We do have Fire Chief Petch back there, and I invite him forward to give us a report on the fire situation.
While he's coming forward, Mr. Mayor, I would remind everybody that it was in the paper, and they're actually starting out at the chip seal projects on the 2 streets on the east side of town.
Yeah.
People need to be aware of that.
Thank you, Councilman Deal.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sorry, Mayor, I didn't get your report sent today. Just got a little busy, but, so it's been a little busier the last couple of weeks. Still kind of the same thing with CO2 or carbon monoxide calls. It's kind of the way it goes right now with the weather, how it fluctuates up and down. Last week, there was a few of us that went up to Sheridan to attend the funeral service for the police officer. I know the police department sent some people up as well. Just, it's always good to go and support other communities and emergency services. So that was quite a impressive thing to actually go and see and be part of. Very sad and unfortunate, but, kind of a impressive thing to go and witness and see how they support their own as well as, the fire community would. On the fire front, definitely picking up a little bit throughout the state, not just for us. We got an email from the state forestry, and they are already talking about trying to get people to start putting fire restrictions in place, which is crazy being only March, but I think in the last 2 weeks, there's been about 16,000 acres that have been burned up in the state. Cheyenne Friday had about a 10,000 acre fire. The week before they had a fire. Where else we got? Johnson County's had fires. Moorcroft has had fires. Saturday night, Laramie County had a big one in which they mutual aided Hawk Springs and LaGrange. Friday we had one out south or on number 9, about 40 acres, but just dry, red flag warnings, and just seems awful early to kind of be in fire season. But, we are there, and so we are staying kind of busy, and just people at the state are kind of on high alert right now. They're kind of nervous, and just want everybody to be aware that things are dry and there's a lot of fuel out there.
In this time of the year, those are mostly grass fires because there's snowpack in the forests, right?
Yeah.
Just wanna-
But also, I think one of the guys last night said he read somewhere where they're talking about in the last couple of weeks we've burned up, not quite as much as they did all year last year, but I know for us we haven't burned a lot around here with some stuff, so you get that undergrowth from each year that's not going away and new growth on top of it, and it just gives a real heavy fuel load. And then on these dry, windy days, if it gets started, you're just kind of off to the races with a lot of heavy fuels. So, and then I know tumbleweeds, and you get those big pockets of tumbleweeds everywhere, and then they go up and the wind takes the embers, and makes for interesting times.
And while we're on this topic, if people are going to have a controlled burn, follow all the safety procedures for a controlled burn, but let dispatch know. 532-7001.
Yep.
532-7001 to report that you're going to have a controlled burn, right?
We would all appreciate it, and I know Kirk's on the Granges department, so I'm sure that he would appreciate it out there as well. It just, you get people wound up, and like I said, a lot of times when you show up with 5 or 6 vehicles and the homeowner's not expecting it, it kind of surprises them. But, I mean, I think right now in the community, or the county, and throughout the state, I think the opinion is kind of to jump on things early and try to get them taken care of before something bad happens and they get bigger. I know we were coming home Friday, and I got a phone call from one of the state foresters, and he said, "Hey, I heard you guys have a fire." And I said, "Yeah, that's what I've heard too." And he said, "Well, we just got done with a big one in Cheyenne. We got a bunch of resources here. What do you need?" They're on their way. And that's the first time in 8 years that I've ever got a phone call like that. So to me, that says awareness is up there. There's a lot of concern of, with this weather and whatnot, that, you know, we don't want to have a great big fire somewhere and lose a lot. I think the one in Cheyenne, there were 50 homes evacuated, 380 other structures, infrastructure, and all that kind of stuff was threatened this weekend. And I think they're determining that most of them, the ones in Cheyenne, I think, are human started, human error with burning or something else. Number 9 is actually state land, BLM. So we have to call them and let them know whenever there's a fire there, and they will send people over. And I know they sent an investigator over to check it out, and I haven't heard what he thinks it was that started that one either, so.
On that Cheyenne fire, it didn't destroy homes. It was out in the pasture, right? It didn't get to the homes?
Well, I saw a picture online where one house that, commended the firefighters, but it was probably within 2 feet of this structure and this residence of how close it actually got. So I don't know if they lost any structures, but 2 feet's probably a little too close for my comfort. As a firefighter and as a homeowner, I would be not real happy with that. I'd be a little nervous, because you get embers get up under eaves and stuff like that, and even just heat damage to siding and whatnot, so.
Yeah. When I saw that on the news about the fire in Cheyenne, the prairie fire, thinking, you can't even strike a match when the wind's blowing that hard. How can you get a fire started when the wind's blowing that hard?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so. And the hard part is once it gets going, though, it's hard to catch them. And with the heavy fuel load, you try to go through and you think you have it knocked down. And if there's just that one little ember you don't have taken care of, the wind picks it back up, and then, fire 50 feet behind you again. And that puts you in danger. And it makes it extremely difficult.
I think Kent said they were even using 2 or 3 Blackhawks.
Yeah, they had some single engine air tankers. I think they had some bigger tankers, and they had the helicopters. So they had a lot of air resources on it as well. So which, again, the air resources this early, it kind of is not usually up and going quite as much. But I think, North Platte had the big one last week. Texas has had some big ones. There's just a lot going on right now.
Texas is on fire.
A million acres
Yeah.
or something in Texas.
So.
All right, has the false alarms from the care center situation kind of resolved?
We haven't had any since,
Good.
for a while now, so maybe.
Took all the batteries out.
They better not.
Yeah, hopefully not that part, but. So. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Fire Chief, appreciate it. Gentlemen, any further comments?
Mr. Mayor, I have an inquiry, and it's in relation to item 2 on our agenda tonight, and I'm just curious, did that motion fail 3-2?
That's what I heard.
Okay. That was my,
All right. Okay. Any takers for public comment? Other takers, I guess. Seeing none, we have completed tonight's agenda, gentlemen, and I will adjourn the meeting.